Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask a question which I think is an interesting question because the answer itself is actually really complicated. So let me flip that question in here, and he basically says, hey, don't most people need to be supplementing vitamin D? So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on a little bit of crafting, and let's talk about this because this is a great question. And it also highlights some important things regarding nutrition, our backgrounds as people, as humans, and all of this stuff. And the reason for that is because basically the amount of vitamin D3, not vitamin D2, not vitamin D in general, but vitamin D3 that a person needs to consume in their diet is dependent upon two factors. How much sunlight they are currently getting at this time of year in the region of the world they live in, and how dark their skin is. And people would say, what do you mean? What does that have to do with it? Well, where do you guys think skin color comes from? Interesting observation. Before modern technology, innovations, a lot of things change for us in the modern world. Clearly people have to notice that everyone from a certain region of the world, different parts, they all have the same skin colors. Nothing to do with anybody being superior to anybody else. It has to do with the fact that literally skin color and pigmentation varies in humans to adapt to sunlight over long periods of time before technology comes into the mix, before things like vitamin supplementation were invented, before sunscreens, UV glass, things like that. This stuff really mattered at certain points in human history, so much so that if you had the wrong skin tone in the wrong part of the world, not enough of you survived to proliferate. That's why everybody in certain regions looks similar. They have similar skin tones. It's exactly the reason. It all has to do with sunlight. That's it. Has to do with sunlight. And the reason it's important with vitamin D3, that is the reason people like me exist. Pale, lack of pigmentation, because there are parts of the world that do not get enough sunlight to properly produce vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is basically your sunshine hormone. All right, it is the hormone that your body produces. You need it for health. You need it for survival. You'll die without it, but you need it for a lot of various hormone functions in your body, and even affects your happiness and stuff. Believe it or not, it can actually, deficiency in it can cause depression, anxiety, everything else in addition to various hormone imbalances. But you create vitamin D3 through absorbing sunlight getting through your skin. And people like me developed in parts of the world where there just isn't enough sunlight. It's not enough sunlight for humans as humans originally started, because we're originally from near the equator. Humans are. That's where our species originated. All right, that's where Homo sapien originated. So accordingly, most humans had much darker skin, because people like me would have been born 100,000 years ago at the equator. We'd have been screwed. We don't have sunscreen. We don't have UV glasses, UV lights in our houses, the windows of our house, the windows of our jobs. We would get sunburned all the time. We would have very, very high chances of getting skin cancer. It would be bad for us. We wouldn't do well. And conversely, people with the darkest skin tones can't survive up in Canada. They can't survive in Northern Europe, Northern Russia, places like that. They will die. Just like people like me get skin cancer down there without protecting ourselves from the sunlight, people with too much pigmentation will develop vitamin D deficiencies and die. So when it comes to actual survival, governments realize this long ago, and they realize that, look, we have people of wide varieties of skin tones in different regions. So they started putting vitamin D3 supplements in everything. They've been doing this, most of you, since before any of you were born. I mean, this has been done a long time ago because this was realized by nutritionists, by food manufacturers, that there were benefits to health and survival to getting vitamin D3 and stuff, particularly in most first world countries that are a bit further to the north. So they've been adding this stuff for a long time. There's a lot of vitamin fortified foods guides out there. You'd be surprised what vitamins and minerals and stuff that have been determined to be useful to large segments of the population are just added to foods individually, not big broad spectrum multivitamins, not a random, oh, we're just picking something random and throwing it in. No, stuff that they know is going to be useful to the population, particularly growing children and things, you know, so breakfast cereals, milks, things like that. A lot of things get vitamins and minerals added in that there's a decent probability that a lot of children growing up might be deficient in. So these are lifesavers. And the vitamin D3 added to a lot of these foods is actually a lifesaver. Without that, you wouldn't see the diversity in population that we have. You wouldn't see it. People wouldn't be nearly as healthy if they're in the wrong region of the world, just like we have sunscreens and other stuff. You know, so someone asked me, do I supplement D3? If they were to ask me, no. Did I when I started my channel? Yes. Why? I lived in the UK. During the wintertime, everyone there, even pale people like me, don't get enough sunlight. Vitamin D3 will help stave off depression. You're not going to get so deficient if you're light-skinned that it's going to harm your health per se, but it is going to affect your mood. You'll get low enough in D3 that you can have depression, you can have lack of motivation. It can be a problem even for the lightest of people. So if you're in a darker part of the world, United Kingdom, Scandinavian countries, maybe up in Canada, even some of the northern United States, Alaska for sure, supplementing with vitamin D3 during the darker months is a good idea. It can help with your mood, it can help with depression, everything else. If you are a darker skinned person and you are considerably further north than where your ancestors came from, like you can look at a map, most people have some idea of what skin tone they have versus kind of different parts of the world. If you're more than a couple hundred miles further away from the equator than your ancestors generally existed, or the sunlight is less where you are, you should probably add a D3 supplement in. Is it always necessary? No, because it might already be enough in your foods. Is it something you should consider for your overall health? Yes. And basically, in short, I mean, if you are a black person and you live in the United States or you live in Europe, it's probably a decent idea for you to take a vitamin D3 supplement, possibly year-round, but you better do it in the wintertime. It can absolutely negatively affect you not to in the winter unless you're getting so much from vitamin fortified foods that you're okay. And again, most people, if you're in a really dark climate, and I don't care what your skin color is, you probably should get some during the winter months. And that's pretty straightforward as far as that goes. But you know, the thing is, to say, does everyone need one? No. Because if you take someone like me right now, even though I gave that advice, and that would include millions and millions of people should be taking that advice on when they should take them. I live in Texas. It never gets dark in Texas. The odds that a person of my skin tone would ever need a vitamin D3 supplement in Texas is probably slim to none. This region where I live is actually too bright for someone like me. There's a reason we all wear hats. The reason we wear hats. There's a reason we're covered. There's a reason we do that. Someone like me needs UV glasses. We need to be wearing hats that cover our face and head when we're out in public. We don't want to get overly exposed. But again, the thing is, you'll find at your work and places, even your job, you might have a window with an outside view, but the thing is, a lot of that UV light gets blocked coming through the window so that you're not necessarily at risk of problems, you know, again, depending on who you are. But for someone like me, it would never get dark enough in Texas to where I would actually benefit from a vitamin D3 supplement. So no, I don't use one here. But if I were to move up further north again, way up north, or up in the mountains during the darker months, the winter months, yeah, I'd probably still take one. But a place like Texas has enough sunlight that no one lighter skin should need one here, but even the darkest skinned people in a place like Texas where I live, maybe they could consider a vitamin D3 supplement in the wintertime, but even them needing one outside of that, probably not going to benefit them. So honestly, guys, it really depends upon your skin tone. And just remember, skin tone is how much pigment you have in your skin. That's what it is. That's what determines how much sunlight gets through your skin. That's what pigment does. All right, that is its biological function in the body. And if you are blocking too much sunlight to where you're not getting enough through, you need a vitamin D3 supplement. So it's determined by pigmentation in your skin, combined with how much sunlight there is that you have access to in the region you live in at that time of year. Because that's what it comes down to. It's seasonal for many people. Many people are going to benefit from a vitamin D3 supplement in the wintertime who don't need one the rest of the year. Some people don't need one at all. They're not really going to benefit from one, and some people might need one year-round. But you know what? As far as needing one year-round, if you're eating foods that are fortified with this stuff, it's probably not that big of a deal. Check your different foods. Most cereals and most milk, and actually quite a bit of other foods. You'd be surprised how many breads and stuff when you check them have been fortified with vitamin D or vitamin A or sometimes even iron. You'd be really surprised if you look at foods. A lot of foods have been fortified with the things that researchers know people are very likely, at least segments of the population are very likely to be deficient in, and they're doing that to try to avoid health problems. And it's not a random guess. They're actually looking at what they know people are going to have a tendency to be deficient in, and they're putting that into the mix. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.